G'day Bomber fans, Dreamtime dub, great occasion, one of the best rounds and games of the season, and Bomber fans are extra happy because we got the win, we enter the 8 for the time being, we saw a glimpse into the future with a great debut performance from young Angus Clark. My mum is thrilled about that, by the way. She was texting me after every goal he kicked. He definitely still has that mum's tick of approval. But yeah, as it's been all year, even the good nights are soured a bit by just injury carnage. We've lost more key position players. I'll talk about that. So yeah, in the end, a comfortable-ish win against an undermanned Tigers outfit, so let's talk about it. Quarter by quarter recap. The first was a slog. It was just a shocking quarter for neutrals. Both sides were feeling each other out. They were both wasteful inside 50 and around the ground. The rain in Melbourne didn't help. But yeah, skills are poor, it was low scoring, defensively based. The only thing that got me up and about was young pup, Angus Clark nailing his first goal in league footy to give us a 5-point lead at the first break. The second term, it was back and forth. Lawler got them started, then Clark and Martin responded for us. Jonty Fall got one from a lucky free kick, and then Angus Clark again bopped up for his third goal. There were lead changes, momentum swings. It was better for neutrals. Stuff was happening. Young players were up and about. We ended the quarter ahead 40-31, but the game was definitely still on. The third, Caddy got us out to a comfortable 15-point lead in the opening 2 minutes to help, us feel a bit at ease. But from there, it was all stress. The Tigers kicked the next 3 goals in a row to hit the lead halfway through the third. Injuries started to mount. Langford went down. Reed was out. I was worried. Redmond was down in the rooms, I think, with the runs, potentially. Durham went to the bench. It was not looking good, but thankfully some lapses in concentration down back helped us get a few cheapies, right with one, Guelphy on his return game with the other. We led at the final break by 2 goals. And in the fourth, we just ran over the top of them. We completely controlled the last quarter. It was just dominance despite the scoreboard not really changing it all that much. In the end, we kicked 2, they kicked 1. We got a 23-point win. But yeah, that last term was kind of just easy. Probably the vibe that many were expecting throughout the whole game. We got 1 quarter of it, but yeah, decent win in front of a big crowd. Some young players stood up, some others went down with injury, so lots to talk about. Okay, well, I started off talking last week about how good our opponents were, the Western Bulldogs, so I should start this week by saying this Richmond team that they fielded, and I mean no offence by this at all, but it was arguably the worst 23 of any side this season, and I think their fans would probably agree. I'm not dissing Richmond as a whole. I've loved what they've done this season. But, as us Bomber fans would know, young teams need experience around them, and the Tigers lost 3 crucial cogs. Lynch up forward, Bolter down back, Nank in the ruck. Every zone had its, arguably most important player out. This was a really, really young and inexperienced team, and it showed. They did well to fight it out and grind out, 2 to 3 quarters, but in the end, they were just overrun by a better and more experienced Essendon team. So yeah, if we're going to talk about the Dogs and their class last week, we got to say that this Richmond team, it's probably the worst side that we're going to go up against this season. When we face the Tigers later in the year, they'll hopefully have more in their lineup, but this week, they were just up against it, and if they won, it would have been a disaster. I've said that there are no must-win games of footy this year. I'm not bothered by wins and losses, but I really thought that if we had gone out and lost this game against a much worse team, it would have been bad. So yeah, credit to the Tigers for grinding it out. I like some of these young players. Lawler is tough. He's unfortunately done his hamstring, it seems. Trainer and Jonty Fall, they weren't great, but I've loved what they've dished up this year. Campbell Gray, he was awesome. He really won that battle against Caddy. I could go on, but yeah, bright future for the Tigers. As of right now, though, very raw and just, not up to the level for 4 quarters of footy. Okay, so aside from, the experienced side winning, where was this game of footy won? I think it's pretty simple. I think the midfield, they were bullied, and it's probably the most frustrating thing for Tigers fans because, that Richmond midfield was probably their most experienced zone. Taranto, Hopper, Camden McIntosh. But yeah, it was a massacre in there. 45 clearances to 23. I can't remember the last time we had a win that big in the midfield. Plus 17 contested possessions, plus 7 inside 50s. And also, it was a new look midfield. Shield out, Martin roams in there, Perkins as well. I don't have the CBA figures on me because I'm recording this pretty close after the game, but it felt like Perkins and Martin were in there more than Merritt and others. It was a really strange setup. There were some negating roles. Setterfield was really good on Tim Taranto. And yeah, if you look at how rounded it was for us, Jacob Hopper for Richmond had 9 clearances, the most on the ground. After him, the next most from a non-ruckman was Taranto, who had 2, and a few others. Whereas we had 6 players with 3 or more, not including Goldie, who actually led us there with 8. He ended up getting the better of young Samson Ryan a bit. But yeah, Perkins 6 clearances, Martin 6, Durham 6, Caldwell 6. It wasn't one player. It wasn't like previous years where Shield, Parrish and Merritt would kind of, just dominate. Even the Yoken medal, I was tossing up between a few different players as to who would win it. All midfielders. If it wasn't Martin, it was Durham. If it wasn't Durham, it was Merritt or Roberts. Yeah, it was just great to see the midfield really functioning and gelling well. And in the end, that was the difference. Our midfield was just miles ahead of theirs. And it's funny because we still got Parrish off to the side, Shields on the outer, Sardis on the outer. We've got real strength and depth in there. If that zone was tested by injury, it would hold up well. But unfortunately, it's the zones that we can't afford injuries in that are getting worn thin. Also, our back six, I feel like we just got to give it credit after last week. And I know that our opposition was poor, but we can't just not praise them after a good performance. I actually thought the Tigers were lucky to hit 58 on the scoreboard. Some of their goals were ridiculous. Taranto kicking a goal of the year contender out of nowhere. I think his other was a set shot from outside 50. There were 2 or 3 others on the run from outside 50. Jonty Fall got one of the softest free kicks you will ever see to get his goal through. It felt like a lot of those goals were out of individual brilliance or luck. Even the last goal, right before the siren sounds, we kind of just lose the flow and let a cheapie go against us when the game's iced. 58 feels higher than what it should have been, and maybe they missed a few shots they should have scored. But I'd like to go back and see every shot because there were some goals that were just unavoidable at times. And I didn't really blame Essendon for it. It was just moments of brilliance or luck, as I said. Even with those goals, keeping the Tigers to 58 is always... keeping any team to 58 is a good effort. I thought Mackay was awesome. Laverty was solid. McGrath and Redmond on ground level. Redmond with the runs. Robertson Pryor. Reid as well until that injury. The annoying thing is our back six just, can't remain settled at all. We're losing so many players there. In fact, Mackay and Laverty right now are the only standing key backs in our team. Hayes out for the year. Ridley's out for over a month still. Reid, we'll talk about that. Cox might not play again. We don't know what's happening with him. We desperately needed that mid-season draft before this game because our back six has functioned well at times. It's gelled, but we're just not really getting enough games into some of these guys together to keep it gelled and solidified. It's really frustrating because at its best, it's functioning all right. And let's just talk about the injuries. So Zach Reid, it is hamstring tightness. That is what he came off with. That doesn't mean he hasn't done damage, though. He's going to be getting scans this weekend, which will tell the full story. The club was precautionary. They pulled him off because he felt discomfort. Hopefully there's nothing wrong and it's just tightness, but we're not going to know until he gets full results. That is worrying because he's got, he's had such a horrible run with injuries. As is Carl Langford. He's now done his quad. He also needs to get scans to tell the full story. But yeah, when you feel it go while kicking, it is never good. That could be a lengthy-ish one. You look at Ridley, who's done his quite a few times, and it's usually 1 to 2 months. That is now a second soft tissue injury of the year for Langford already. So yeah, and it's just a brutal continuation of this run of injuries to key position players too. So the defenders I spoke of before, Ridley, Hayes, Cox, Reid possibly. All out, and then the forwards, Langford, Edwards, Jones, Draper as well, and of course, Bryan's in the ruck. So that's about 8 or 9 or 10 tall players on the sidelines, meaning we're likely going to be taking key position players in the mid-season draft. Our strategy now will revolve around taller players, and whereas, before I thought we'd probably, stick to 3 selections, maybe we take 4. Who knows if Cox is medically retired? I don't know. We've got so many injuries at the moment. Hopefully there's nothing too serious with Reid and Langford. But yeah, just the shocking timing before a big run of games. We might have to field a mid-season draftee a day after he's brought to the club. That's the state we're in right now. It is a brutal run of injuries that we're dealing with. I haven't really seen anything like it, to be honest. And just going off that a little bit, I think it's really important to just remind ourselves and know where we're at as a team right now. Because, yes, we didn't get a big win. Most teams would probably smash Richmond in a game like that. I know some will be frustrated, because we didn't get that big win. But right now, we are inside the 8 for the time being. Level on wins with Adelaide from the same amount of games. The Dogs from one less game. We're ahead of Carlton, who are pushing for a flag. Port and Sydney were in a prelim last year. Whereas we're in a full-scale rebuild. We've just blooded our 6th debutant. I think we're due to see at least 3 or 4 more. We've got a horrible injury crisis, but we're still getting wins. We're playing okay footy. We're getting the kids involved. I think this is probably the last game for a while that we go in favourites for and maybe even win. Sure, we might nab an upset, but our next games are against the Lions at the Gabba, the Blues, the Cats, the Dockers in Perth, the Suns. We're not going to be favourites for any of those games. We may be playing, footy with our fifth string key defender in Laverty as our second main key back. We're rucking with a 36-year-old Todd Goldstein. We've got Caddy up forward as our leading goal scorer in just his second season. I get that fans want success, they're as impatient. We want to win games of footy, but where we're at right now, we should not be winning games of footy. I think we got to remember that. We really shouldn't be where we're at. Let's say Geelong go and lose Jeremy Cameron, their leading goal scorer for the last few years. They lose 4 key defenders. They lose 2 rucks for the season, the 2 main rucks for the season. Do you think they're still 5th on the ladder? And same goes for, the Crows. If the Crows lose Thilthorpe, all their key defenders, they have no key defensive depth. If they lose O'Brien and Strawn, they're screwed. I think we should be really realistic with where we're at and also proud of where we're at, if I'm being honest. I know that, we haven't beaten anyone that good. We've beaten some poor teams, but we've won games of footy. Many were saying we'd be in the bottom 4 to start the year. That was before we had all our tools go down. And if at the start of the year I was to tell you guys, or if you were to tell me that Langford, Ridley, Parrish, Draper, Bryan, Caldwell, Gresham, Guelphy, even the second string guys like Lewis Hayes and Edwards, I'm probably missing some as well. If I told you all of them would miss multiple games and we would still be on a positive win-loss ledger after 10 matches, I would be over the moon. I would take that in a heartbeat. So yeah, I think we really do have to be happy with where we're at. Yes, our percentage is bad. We've had some horrible losses. But, we could be... we're getting wins. And that is crucial for guys like Clark and Kako and Roberts and Caddy, these young kids that are part of our next push. This is a really important period for them, and they're getting wins on the board. And better yet, in this case, getting wins in front of big crowds on the board. So yeah, be happy where we're at right now. I struggle to see how long it lasts. I think there are due to be some more Bulldogs-like games on the horizon. I think we need to understand that. Hopefully, between those, we have, some big upsets. I'm keen to see how we go in this underdog stretch. If we manage to get, one win from our next 4 or 5 games, it'll be an upset win. And that makes it a must-watch period for us. But yeah, I think we need to be happy with where we're at. But yeah, in the end, a win's a win. It was obviously a win soured by some big injuries, but a win is a win. That is all we can ask for at this stage of our development. It might be the last win for a while. I don't know. The good news is we get the win just in time for the mid-season draft reinforcements to arrive. This time next week, we could have 4 new players, so stay tuned to the channel. I'll be doing a preview on Tuesday and a review on Thursday, welcoming our new players. I'll also be over on the Bomber Banter YouTube channel live on Wednesday night after the draft, talking to Fiona about our new players. So head over there around 8:30 Victorian time. But yeah, honestly, good win. I didn't think I'd be saying that about a 4-goal win at the Tigers at the start of the year, but given where we're at, you got to be happy with it. It is actually, and I know some of you might disagree, but I think it's a pretty good time to be a Bombers fan. I feel like every week we get someone new to be excited about. Kako round 1, Edwards round 2 before his ACL, Sard in round 3, Angus Clark, Reed coming through, Caddy being enormous, Archie Roberts. I know we're not even playing amazing footy, but there is now serious promise for the future for me. And we haven't even seen it all. Zach Johnson's going to play soon. He's another one to get excited about. We've got our NGA boys next year. I saw Adam Swade live in Dandenong on Sunday, and he looks really exciting. Yeah, it's just fun seeing these young players grow and look good for the future, and the fact they're actually playing. So yeah, soak in wins like this. You could ask for more, but I think just be happy with the 4 points. It was scrappy, it was dull at times, it was far from pretty, but we got the win. Okay, votes. 1 vote to Archie Roberts. It was a toss-up between him and Merritt, but in the end, I thought Roberts was just important to our structure and so reliable down back finding space and progressing the ball forward. 0.5 kilometre in metres gained, 34 touches, almost 80% efficiency, was getting stuck into their players. I love that he's not just a classy footballer, but a real pest as well. And really rose to the occasion in his first Dreamtime game. I thought, yeah, that was his best game in the red and black. 2 votes to Sam Durham. He really wasn't far off the medal for me, or the B.O.G award. He was immense. His work in the contest was massive. I think he led us for score involvements. But 3 votes to Nick Martin. He was 35 touches, 2 goals, some incredible play. His highlights for that game are nuts. Some of the things he did were so good. And it came from full-time midfield minutes. That's what happens when you play him in the midfield, or anywhere really. He's just a threat wherever he is. And I think that game kind of proves to me that after Merritt, this guy is our next star. He's still developing too, which is cool, but he could be a real star of the comp. My role player, I really just couldn't not give it to Pup. Angus Clark, that was just Pure energy. I was watching the game with some mates and we were, literally getting angry anytime someone didn't try and find Clark inside 50 because, I don't know, it just felt like his night. And that's great when a debutant has that. My mum was texting me every time he kicked a goal. She was over the moon because obviously he's got that mum's tick of approval. I loved him. 15.8 kilometers ran in your first game on debut. That is nuts. Kicked 3 goals. Probably gets a Rising Star nomination. But yeah, we've got a real player here. He was really, really good on debut. That is very exciting. Some unlucky. Zach Merritt was huge. I'm sure he'll get votes from you guys. Setterfield was great. He locked down Taranto. Wright and Goldie were good. Mackay, I could go on and on. It's going to be a really fun play ratings video, actually. I don't think anyone was that bad. But yeah, that is that. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Enjoy the win. We move on to the mid-season draft and then Brisbane at the Gabba. So that is going to be interesting. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, cheers for watching. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.